Who are the most interesting players on the Pacers this season for various reasons? How about the local perspective and the national perspective on that question? As Matt Moore from the Action Network and Locked On NBA is going to join us to break it all down today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Thursday and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, somehow, we're like 2 weeks away from stuff starting again for the Pacers, which is nuts. And we're still a lot of fun offseason stuff to get to today. Something I wanted to do for a couple weeks is get an outsider's perspective on the most interesting players on the Pacers to them this season. Obviously, I'll chime in with my local perspective and give you my three answers. So we're going to talk about 6 guys today. What makes them interesting, either from a storyline perspective, from the future of the Pacers perspective, for various reasons. And I want you to predict who you think we're going to talk about and see if we got it right. We hit some stars. We get really deep into the weeds. It was really good. Matt Moore from Action Network and Locked On NBA was great. He also does Locked On Nuggets, so check him out over there. Let's just jump right in, talking most interesting Pacers this season with Matt Moore. You've heard us babble like idiots on Locked On NBA many times. This time, I'm making Matt come to me because I want a national perspective on this topic. The 3 most interesting Pacers players for the coming season. It's very strange in a run-it-back year that they can have so much intrigue on their roster, yet they totally do. And Matt is going to represent the national perspective here, although he knows every team very well. You could probably qualify as a local expert for about all 30. How you doing? Are you excited for the Nuggets to get going, Mr. Locked On Nuggets man? What's the vibes in Denver right now?
Nervous. There's a lot of nervousness. There's a lot of like, how is this going to go exactly? Because it's like, oh, hey, well, they just let their starting 2-guard walk and they're starting Christian Brown. Hope that works. Oh, they're adding Russell Westbrook. Hope that works. Oh, the coach of the front office basically just like acknowledged they're not on the same page. Hope that works. Oh, and you have to maximize Nikola Jokic's window, and you just gave Jamal Murray, who's coming off one of the worst summers you can possibly imagine, $208 million. Other than that, everything's swell and it's good vibes in Denver, but they're going to be fine because they have Jokic.
Well, the good news for the Nuggets and their local intrigue is that Bo Nix did not play well in his first game as the Broncos.
And the Buffaloes are terrible. So, really, lots of things to distract.
Whew. All right, Jokic time. Well, in Pacerland, the vibes are the opposite. It's the exact same cast of characters with a lot of hope of like, hey, there's lots of young guys. Let's hope some of them get better. And that creates, for me, a lot of intrigue on can that path actually work? But there's veterans that matter quite a bit. I want you to go first. Give me one of your 3 most interesting players on the Pacers this season and why.
So I think this is a really fascinating exercise because you're like, what's the national perspective? And there's 2 different ideas of this, which is like, what's the national perspective in terms of a national conversation about the Pacers? And then there's like, what does a national analyst think of? And I had to kind of separate it out because like my inclination was genuinely to go like deep nerd mode and be like, well, I want to dive into this
for me.
guy.
That's my job.
Yeah. And I was like, well, no, that's not what he's asking for. So like, look, this one seems like very obvious, but I don't think it is because of where he's at in the national conversation. And that's Tyrese Haliburton. Like, I think it's actually like a really interesting season for Hallie coming off of a season where he emerges as, you know, a lot of different opinions on him. I've been very surprised. I'm higher on Hallie than almost anybody else. And I was really surprised the pushback that I got when I was like, no, I think he could be first team all NBA. Like, he's probably not going to make it, but I think he's probably worth it. Like, you need to discuss him. And people were like, are you insane? That's preposterous. And I'm like, he is the primary engine of the best offense in the NBA. Probably deserves a little bit of consideration here. And then you have the playoff run where everybody's like, well, okay, sure, they beat the Bucks, but you know Giannis. And then they beat the Knicks. And then you have them, the Celtics, Joe Mazzulla saying they were the toughest opponent that we faced. So you have a conference finals appearance. He goes into Team USA, is there, right? Like, and everyone's like, well, yeah, but he wasn't really on Team USA because he didn't play. And I'm like, look, everybody that goes to Team USA cites it as a pivotal moment in their career, and not because of playing, but because they get to see the other guys and how they work. You get to see these other players, and those guys all walk out with a better understanding of what it takes to be great in this league. So from a national perspective, there's going to be a little bit of like, all right, cool, you had a good year, do it again. And like, well, your defense is terrible and all these types of things. And there's a lot of people there like, well, he did have that slump in the middle of the season because he got hurt and was playing through it.
Right.
So for me, he has to be the number one on this list from a national perspective, not because he's the superstar of the team, because I think they're very boring superstars, but because there's a very big divide, I think, nationally between whether or not Tyrese Haliburton is an elite NBA player or not.
Yeah, that's a great point, because anyone who says he can't be first team All-NBA, my assumption is they were born on like January 9th of this year. And that,
Right.
because he was like one of the best two guards in the league for the first 2 months of the season that just happened, 2.5 months, right? Like it just happened. We saw it. My intrigue with that would be because he hasn't had a healthy season with the Pacers. I mean,
Right.
the season he was traded to Indiana, he only missed 5 games in total, but he was traded. So, and he got hurt around the same time both years. So can he play 75 games? And can he hit that level for a long time? Because a big part of his slump was threes. And a lot of the other stuff was really similar, but also like the team dynamic change. He was playing without Buddy for the first time. Siakam's down in the fold. Like he doesn't have to do as much. What is like if he was healthy for that period that I just described, what does that actually look like? Right. Because he did pivot, as he described, to like doing off-ball stuff at times. And like, oh, wow, Andrew Nembhard and TJ McConnell are like really good. They can handle it. Like there just was a lot of blending of reality going on at the same time. So Haliburton wasn't in my answer specifically, but I do have a lot of intrigue of like, I'm pretty sure this is the case, but I'd like to be certain that him being on a team is like a guaranteed top 5 to whatever offense in the league. I'm pretty sure that's the case, or at least close to the case. But what does that actually land on? I think we'll find out this year, and health permitting, and playing the full year would help a lot, because I, like you, think he can get to those conversations. I don't know if he'd end the season there, but he can get there. But health is a huge requirement, and the Pacers team success is a requirement. Can they actually be better? That also is a little bit part of him.
Yeah, and I think, also I think part of this is I'm very optimistic about him based off of the fact that because they didn't just get past the Bucks without Giannis, and I'll be very clear, I was going to pick the Pacers if Giannis played. Like I was all in on them winning that matchup, but it wasn't just like they got past the Bucks and then they got eviscerated in the second round, got swept, and it was just like, okay, yeah, you beat this team because they were hurt, and then you're out. The fact that he had like dips, right, where people were like, "Where's Haliburton? Where's Haliburton?" And then he responded to that and had good games. Like he got to see what it's like when you have to force the issue, when you have to not just be like because he tried to be like, well, okay, I'm just going to kind of like, fade to the background a little bit because of the attention that I'm drawing. And then later he was like, no, I got to go make plays.
Right.
Having that idea, I do think does help in the regular season because it allows you the confidence to take over games, which that's a big part of what he's going to have to understand is, he's, again, I think he's the best engine in the NBA outside of Jokic, but also he is going to have times where it's like, no, you're going to have to be the guy. Like that's just where this is. And Steve Nash never really got there. And that comp is very good, I think, for Haliburton, and him understanding how to balance that, I think is really important this season.
I agree. Like a big point for me last year was that he should take just more shots because himself creating is more efficient than like lots of other plays.
Yeah.
But that's part of being a star. But he's even said at times, like me passing as much as I do can be selfish at times. So can he continue now with playoff experience to go that direction? Locally, I think the other star is the guy that, and Siakam is on my list, is the guy that I think would be more intrigued, because there's a lot of talk about two things. One is something he said, which is it was a dramatic change defensively coming here in terms of what his role was. And as you know, going from a Nick Nurse system for his entire career to, he was with Darko for a little bit, but then switching teams, it was like, whoa, this is way different. Like when my instincts are way different. So can he be a better defender? I think is key. But something he said and something I hear a lot that I've been thinking about is there's this talk of like, well, imagine a training camp. Imagine what he could do with a training camp. And that gets brought up a lot. And that also gets brought up a lot for Dame, who kind of had camp last year, but didn't like practice, didn't want to get hurt last summer. Okay. So I've been thinking about what the value of a training camp is for a player, because I do believe them when every player says this, and you know this, you cover a team every day, that like training camp is 50% of a team's practices in a season, right? Like a huge percentage, right? So it's not nothing. I get that what they're saying is accurate, but I also struggle to think of a time where a guy got traded to a team and was like pretty good for them, and then had a training camp and was like, whoa, this guy's a mate. Like what actually is the value of that? And how much better can he be with the Pacers having that in? And so there are a lot of like little things. Can he be better at this and that? How does it impact the whole team? 82 games instead of 41 is awesome. Like that's huge for the Pacers, but specifically having camp, how much is that going to make him better and in turn make the Pacers a better team?
I think there's like two very key elements here. And, I think training camp is very position dependent. I think if you're a point guard, it matters a lot because you learn where guys want the ball and where they're going to be. You learn tendencies when you've got the ball that much. I think if you're a wing or a center, it matters a lot less. But in Siakam's case, I do think it kind of matters just from the perspective of understanding the tendencies of guys, how to operate around that. And then on the other end of this, I think the biggest thing is just like, look, the defense, I think the defense was better. It wasn't remarkably better, but it was better, after the trade. And once they settled in, then they can have some moments. With Myles Turner and Pascal Siakam, your defense should not be bottom 8, right? It should be at least above that mark. I think it's reasonable to expect 15 to 20 at minimum.
Wow. No one locally thinks that, to be clear.
No, I don't think they will be this season either because of the surrounding personnel. But Siakam and Turner individually are such good defenders throughout the course of their careers. Now, look, situation matters. I've seen guys go from really great defenders to terrible. Like DeJounte Murray was really great in San Antonio. Absolute tire fire last year. Harrison Barnes,
yes,
historically, very good defender. In Sacramento last year, absolutely atrocious. Like, it does matter. But if he and Turner can get on the same page and solve some of the problems, if the coaching staff does dictate, hey, we've got to get everybody on the same page here. And it's not just getting everybody on the same page as the coaches. It's talking to those players and being like, look, I don't want to switch in this situation. Like, I do not want to switch in this action. Like, I want to be able to play drop, or, hey, I can handle this. Let me play up here. And, those actions, play inside, outside, shoulder, whatever, those things help a lot. And so improving that communication when you've got a practice environment, I do think helps a lot because there are so many ways to gimmick defense just from systemic changes. Everybody acts like it's about personnel. It's not. Like, it helps. Good personnel makes a great defensive scheme into an elite defense. But if you've got great personnel and a terrible scheme, you will still be awful. And if you have really awful personnel and a great scheme, you'll be okay. And that's, I think, where the Pacers can kind of get to if they're able to spend the time there.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm sure they'll try to change or tweak some things. They even did that midseason last year to some varying level.
It's so hard in season because guys got to remember it's a mental thing. There's too much.
And when they did it, they changed their starters too, right? So that is a compounding thing. So my follow-up to what I just said is a question for you because you saw this up close. Aaron Gordon did get a lot better with the Nuggets with the training camp. Like, he is an example of, yes, what everyone's saying is true. Like, I'm not saying what they're saying is wrong. I wonder how valuable it actually is my question. Like, what really changed for him? Was it because in my head, from watching, 10 to 15 full Nuggets games that year, the synergy with Jokic was the thing that was like, whoa, it's way better, right? Like, among a lot of things, he was clearly a much better player in general, but that was a big thing that made him take off offensively and become like, oh, Mr. Nugget, this guy's awesome. And then he got most improved votes next year too. So what was it? Like, was it just a chemistry thing? Was he a role change? Like, can these things apply to Siakam?
So there are two things there's kind of two jumps that he made. You mentioned kind of the year after. The first year, I think, was honestly about just recognizing that he had to let go of a lot of what he had known, right? Because when you're in Orlando, he'd had 5 different head coaches, but he was the same guy. It was that's who he was. And understanding hey, you're going to need to do things differently to tailor to this. That kind of understanding was really good, and learning what those tendencies were. But honestly, a big part of this, and I am not somebody, I'm not a Nuggets fan, so I don't tend to over inflate Jokic as good as he is as a 3-time MVP. It's hard not to overinflate him. But there is an effect where literally if you talk to guys, they're like, I see the game entirely differently after playing with Nikola. And so after playing with Nikola in training camp, Aaron really kind of he started to see the game differently. The year after, the work that really came in was Aaron understanding where he was, that he was going to be with Jokic, and understanding the opportunity. And after, especially before the title year, when they got worked by the Warriors, there was an understanding from Aaron of I need to work on the mental side of the game. I don't need to work on the physical side. I don't need to be the fastest, strongest guy. Is one of the fastest and strongest guys. His athleticism is absurd. But like Aaron really recognized that like basketball IQ is what he needed to improve on. So he worked on that in the offseason and then carried that into camp. And the smarter you are around Jokic, the more you're going to benefit from playing next to Jokic. I think from a Pacers perspective, some of this is going to probably be, that's going to be one of the additions of Siakam is he's never played an offense like this. He's played on good offenses, but he's never played an offense like this. And so like understanding the pace, understanding the sequencing, understanding those type of things, because there were times I thought during the playoff run in particular, where it was like the Pacers were doing Pacers things and then Siakam was still kind of like halfway in between. And if Siakam really commits himself to playing in that style, that puts more pressure on you defensively because of the speed. But if you do that, I still think Siakam can be an even bigger monster this season.
And sometimes that Siakam being Siakam was better for them than what the blend was. But if him and Haliburton have a similar kind of connection growth that you just talked about with Gordon, that could matter a great deal. Everybody, very quickly, we need to talk about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you are into speed or power or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You will always find exactly what you are looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you will get your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home some huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Okay, Matt, your second player of massive intrigue, the biggest intrigue on the Pacers this year.
Andrew Nembhard.
Ooh, also not on my list. I like this one. Okay.
So I think the big thing is everyone in the playoffs watching had a
whoa.
Wait, who's this guy? Like there was, Nembhard was a guy that I don't think like a lot of casual fans knew. And for me, as somebody that had known him, I've been like, yeah, no, he's good. I was like, oh, okay. So like Andrew Nembhard could be like the primary option on a team competing in the playoffs. Sure. That's the thing that I expected out of this sequence. And so when you look at his regular season numbers last year, good, not great. Like wasn't necessarily like didn't jump off the page. But when you carry through into how much of a dog he was in the playoffs and how much he competed and how much, honestly, it was impressive to see, because, some of that was Haliburton, playing to how the defense was approaching things and taking a step back because of the scheme that was being approached. But on the other side of that entire thing falls and they don't have a chance to come back in some of these series at all, or have a chance in the Celtics series if Nembhard doesn't step up and step into that role. And so the fact that he did really makes it interesting from the perspective of like, all right, is this like a Caleb Martin thing where he has like one and a half really great series, but you're not convinced that, but like, then he just goes back to being, Caleb Martin. Like, is that what happens? Or is this like, oh no, like you actually have another weapon that you can use here. The Haliburton doesn't have to you don't have to run isocentric stuff, which I think is actually probably better both for the overall health of the offense and for Haliburton's durability. Like having Nembhard, the question is basically just like not playoff Nembhard, which I guess is a thing now, but can Nembhard be, oh, hey, he's like a legitimate weapon that you have to account for, and he can have these nights where he picks it up. And especially, I thought in a lot of ways that defensively he was much better, and he was tasked with very hard assignments. And he really showed it like, the dog thing is such an overstated thing, but it's true. Like he was a dog in the playoffs. Like he's going out there and hitting mid-range jumpers off of the pick and roll and punishing these teams for how they're playing him. And then he's taking really tough assignments on the other end. And so can he improve? Can he make that jump? And can he step into that kind of role where he's not just like, oh, remember that year where Andrew Nembhard had a great playoffs, but instead like, no, that was like the start of Andrew Nembhard being a guy for the Pacers.
Yeah. You've seen both sides of this, right? So I considered him for my third guy, but I was already pretty high on Andrew Nembhard before the season. So, I mean, obviously it was stunning what he did in games 3 and 4 of the conference finals, but like I thought he could be really good. You know, we've seen like even here, Paul George's like true stamp of OMG. Like he was really good, and then he had the playoffs in 13 and was like, oh Jesus, like this guy's amazing. But there's also Bismack Biyombo, who is, to be clear, Bismack Biyombo is still in the league, like good player. But like what was it, 2015 playoffs, 2016 playoffs, or was like, is this the best rim protector in the NBA? The answer was no.
Right.
No, it was not. But he was awesome for a little bit, right? So sometimes you just have a good playoffs as a young guy and your rep goes crazy. But I don't think that kind of thing will be the case for Nembhard because I already thought he was really good. For him, and a lot of guys on the team, the bet on them getting better is that they're young, but also like for him fitting on the team is so easy. Go guard and make threes, and you'll be good, and you'll get reps as a point guard throughout the year because Haliburton and McConnell aren't going to play every game, and he fits in any lineup because he can defend. So if he just ups his 3-point percentage, he'll be a better player. Or if he can get to the rim the way he did against Drew freaking Holiday in the conference finals, he'll look like it's just there's a lot of ways he can be better, and all of them help the team in such a major way. And he's gotten better his whole career. I certainly think he'll be a better player next year. They paid him like somebody they think's going to be that good next year. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what I said before the season, my bold prediction was that he'd be their X factor. He waited till the last 2 games to make me look smart, but he waited. So I didn't get it until then, but that's why I see this kind of player in there, and I'm curious what the next steps are. But my guy number 2 is a different young guard, Matt Moore. It's Ben Mathurin for the 3rd year in a row for me. And it's the same questions as last year, which is weird because he did make strides in the areas that everybody would have talked about last year. It's not about his ability. Everybody knows how good Ben Mathurin is, right? This guy can draw fouls at a crazy level for his age. Oh my gosh, he could score 14.5 points a game in his sleep. See him the foul line how much at age 20? This is awesome. The Pacers play in this crazy, unpredictable, fast style. And for Ben Mathurin, the continued pursuit of greatness and the player he wants to be and has talked about wanting to be is blending what he is really good at with what the Pacers are really good at. And what does that require of him? Does that mean he has to be a Nesmith Nembhard level defender to start, and then he can get a bunch of bench reps where he's scoring like crazy and starter reps where he's playing more like those 2 guys? Is it, oh my gosh, Ben Mathurin made 42% of his threes this year. Last year, he's above league average from 3, 37.4%. That's great. Is it quicker decisions to do the stuff he's already good at? Catch, go, get to the rim, draw a foul. Catch, go, get to the rim, pass. He had a few games. His assists barely went up last year, but he had games where it was like, yes, that. Do those decisions, right? And so it is going to be a constant battle for him. And his ex interview was one of the most revealing I've ever been at this past season, where he was like, look, your whole life, you're the best player on your team. And it like finally hits you at some point in the NBA. Like, you're just not. And so you have to adapt at that point. And he's like hinted at that kind of stuff, but that was the most like he got it. Like he hit it on the head. Okay, now what? What are you doing from that to do the things I just described, where it's be Ben Mathurin, be really good. And if you hit this ceiling that it looks like you could, like, whew, man, Pacers could be great. But also fitting in with the way the Pacers play, which is such a tricky style for someone like him who has never had to play that way, who has always played more slowed down and read the game, read where he thinks he can get a shot, and then go get it. It's different. He just can't do that on this team.
Yeah, he was my 3rd guy.
Yes.
So this is a good transition that he was my 3rd guy for the kind of the perception. I mean, so explosive as a rookie. That note about his exit interview is like, that's why I'm not just blowing smoke here, man. Like, that's why I love your coverage, is you pick up on stuff like that. That's like so valuable to know about a team going into a season, where it's like, that's like one of my biggest question marks about him is like his attitude is so brash. Right. And so there's that concern of like, look, there's just a lot of guys that come into this league and they know how to score, and they know that scoring gets you paid. Every agent will tell you scoring gets you paid. And they don't want to change because they're being told that's how you get paid, when instead it's like you can have a really successful career and be a winner if you're just willing to adapt a little bit. And that doesn't mean not scoring. It just means not making it the only thing. And so if he's able to kind of like adapt those types of things and be more of a playmaker and play more in the system, and especially to be like, there's a role where he's able to do Benedict Mathurin things, and that's his role. And if he's able to embrace that, that's going to make them even more dangerous, because they've learned this from their first real playoff run. The playoffs are all about, do you have answers for the questions provided? Right. Do you have answers for what is in front of you? And like that Celtics series would have been a great opportunity to have Benedict Mathurin as a potential answer.
Yeah. Also, sorry, every opponent they got would have been a good Ben Mathurin opponent in the playoffs. They avoided all the ones he wouldn't have been good, but we didn't get to see it.
Right. And so for him to be able to kind of come in and take the step, now there is that part of me that, like, I remember Duarte's rookie season and being like, hey, he had a really good rookie season. And then like, just like the Back to the Future photographs, he just fades away. And so like, there's that part of me that's kind of like, okay, what's, like, I want to see, okay, we had another really great rookie season. And then like a little bit of a quieter sophomore season, though there were some really great moments. I thought for Mathurin, he had some really big games. What does this look like going forward? Where does he fit in? Especially like this kind of contrast with number 2, right? Where it's like, all right, Mathurin's here, but like, look at what Nembhard did for you. Like, look at what Nembhard, and honestly, in my opinion, like Nesmith to a certain degree too, where he played like a really big role in them winning big games. And that's why the injury sucks, is because you lose the ability to kind of grade Mathurin in those environments. And so this is, in some ways, it's kind of like a prove it year for Benedict Mathurin, despite the fact that he's already accomplished quite a bit and proven what he is in the NBA. But for this team, like, I'm very, like, I just think there's a national, question of like, what's Mathurin going to be? And is there room for him to be who he is on the squad?
I agree. Remember, like, I don't know where you were at on this, but like, for a time to start his rookie season, people like, this is the rookie of the year. Like, yeah. Like, is this guy, he was at that level and he maintained it for a lot of the year. I think he finished 4th or 3rd, was on the first team all rookie, like got 6 man of the year votes. Like, he was really good. The other question I would have to bounce off of him is, I don't remember exactly what the numbers were 2 years ago, but similar. He played more minutes without Haliburton than he did with him, right? And they started the season starting him, and their defense was god awful. I have it up now. Their defensive rating with those two together was 121.5. Like that. Yeah. Yikes. Right. So you can't live like that. And some of that's that Haliburton's not a good defender too. A big part of that is, right? And that's why they adjust their starting 5 to like, hey, Nembhard and Nesmith can guard. They're starting next to him, right? So, but you need to know what the Haliburton Mathurin duo is fully, right? And maybe you don't, because Nembhard is really good already, but I would like more information personally on what that duo is and how they click and what their ceiling could be. And that's really hard. Like, well, the thing with Mathurin that I think, to kind of finish the label on why it's so interesting to me, is the goals of the Pacers are now win conference finals last year. Like, they're probably not thinking they can make it back with certainty, but they think they can make it back, right? But also, like, hey, Ben Mathurin and kind of Jarris Walker are like ascending. How do we develop these guys at the same time? Like, it's just a really odd reality to have those duality. Last year, it was okay. They were trying to explore and win. This year, it's all about winning. So how does that kind of overcast all that? But a lot of Ben Mathurin intrigue for me. I would have led with him if you did not lead with Haliburton and make it easy to transition to another star player.
I will mention that some of my preferred choices, if we're talking about, if I wasn't given like the national perspective,
yes,
it would have been like Jarris Walker. It would have been like Isaiah Jackson. I'm very interested to see like the development this year with where he's going to be at in the rotation with the departure of Jalen Smith, who was so good for them last year. And then, like, to be honest with you, like, there's one of my big questions is just like, hey, can the Pacers be the first team to not go to absolute garbage when they employ James Wiseman? Because every other team that has had James Wiseman on it has been not just like not good, but actively amongst the worst you can possibly imagine, just by the presence of him on the roster. And so that'd be,
hey, he is a champion, Matt Moore.
That's true. He is
an NBA champion. Yeah, I mean, look, for him, it's the right bet, right? Like, he could point to the Pacers and go, whoa, Toppin and Nesmith and Jalen Smith and like all these guys, it's been such a thing. But this goes back to Mathurin, where it's different now. This is the first year of this kind of coaching core and team core of the Pacers where they're not in development mode as much, right? So can they blend those things? One more break here, guys. We got to talk about the good folks over at Gametime, the best way for you to get tickets to the events near you, sports, comedy, theater, whatever. They have a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting those tickets even easier. They filter out the fluff, show you the incredible deals so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Gametime is the best. They take the guesswork out of buying tickets with tons of awesome features like the view from your seat feature, toggle off the hidden fees and the pricing so you know exactly what you're going to pay. They have their lowest price guarantee because they'll credit you if you find cheaper tickets in the same section in a row for less. Event cancellation protection, super deals, everything you could possibly want in a ticket buying experience. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. How about that? Terms apply. Again, create an account, Redeem the code LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's Gametime. You nailed it locally. That I think if you asked people here what the answers were, I think they would probably have said Mathurin, Jarris Walker, and Myles Turner. So I will let you pick which one of those two between Jarris and Myles we talk about next.
Talk to me about Myles Turner because I love the guy and I'm very curious to know what the conversation is locally about him.
Yeah, the intrigue has nothing to do with how good he is now, which finally, everybody knows that Myles Turner is the guy he said he was all these years. He said, I could score more. I could do these things. Everyone's like, okay, then do it. Well, as soon as he's the only center, he did it, man. He could do it. And now it's contract stuff because they extended everybody and re-signed everybody this summer. That's great. I don't think they signed a bad deal this summer. Some of them were like crazy team friendly. You could quibble with Siakam being not a good deal, but I'm not going to. So that means next year they're like $20 million from the tax without Myles Turner. Are they going to pay it? Are they going to trade someone to keep him? He's on an expiring deal, and he can't be extended this season. So the intrigue with Turner has nothing to do with how he plays. I think everybody realizes, okay, this guy's good. He fits very well. Him and Siakam is a very natural front court fit. He's not the defender he used to be, but he's a better offensive player, so it's fine. But, he's whatever you say, 9th, 10th, 11th best center. And he proved he could do it in the playoffs, which matters for them now. How do they keep him? Or what does this season say about what they could do with the money otherwise, right? Like that is the intrigue with him. It has nothing to do with the basketball part.
So love Turner's season from an offensive perspective, but there is that part of me that's just like, but you were like a DPOY guy. Like I loved you. I loved you as like a DPOY candidate. What happened? Why are you not raising the floor of this defense whatsoever to any sort of meaningful level? And so that to me is where I've got questions for Turner this upcoming season is I don't want the Pacers to get away from their identity, right? I think it's totally reasonable and a good approach to come in and try and be the number one offense in the NBA. Like the Celtics are technically first, but ceiling wise, it's not even close. The Pacers are the best offense in the NBA. And then just try and get the defense to 18th. And that's basically how the Nuggets won the title. Nuggets had the 18th best defense in 2023. And then they figured out enough of the problems that they had to solve in the playoffs, and they were able to win a title. I'm not saying the Pacers can win a title, but that needs to be the direction that they're headed. But I am of the opinion of Turner's a really great offensive player. Is he good enough again for this upcoming contract for you if he's not providing what he did defensively? And so there's got to be some sort of signal that you can rebalance with him being still a spacing threat in particular to open things up, but also, and he's, sneaky good on the interior as well, but also try and get a little bit more rim protection, try and get a little bit more rebounding, try and get a little bit more of that Myles Turner from 2-3 seasons ago, where you're able to kind of say now, okay, no, we do have we've got scheme and personnel fixes enough to get this defense up. And because if Turner doesn't have a great defensive season, even on a bad defense, I don't know how they dig themselves out of the bottom 10. And then you can't really expect to make a playoff run despite doing it last year. You can't expect it to not run into a team that's able to exploit you if you don't do that. And you're not going to win enough games. You just are going to have to get to not awful defensively. And for me, that really does start with Turner.
Yeah, if positionless defense voting happened 5 years ago, he'd be a first-team all-defense guy once and a second-team all-defense guy another time, right? It just so happens he played Rudy Gobert and Joel Embiid's position. That sucks. He'll never get a defensive accolade, but he was at that level at one point. So can he get back to it? And if he gets a little bit better on defense and his offense is about the same, and they get to keep him, then the intrigue isn't about him. The intrigue is about what do they have to trade someone else? If so, who? Or are they really going to pay the tax? You see the Celtics and Suns payrolls? Are they really going to do it? Right? It's so. And if they lose in the first round, does it even matter? Are they we're not paying the tax? We lost the first round. So it's not even really a Myles Turner question. I guess it kind of is, but the intrigue locally is more how do they keep him? He's good.
Turner is the exact type of player, and I'm not just saying this because the Nuggets let KCP go, but Turner's the exact type of player that this CBA was designed to punish.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And it's not purposeful to punish it. It's more a matter of the owners wanted a hard cap and they were able to construct this system, which allows them to take guys like Turner and reduce their salary and just be can't go into that second apron, man. It's too restrictive for us building the team. And so then just what winds up happening is Turner's overall earning potential is impacted.
Yeah.
That to me is like one of the most harmful things about the CBA is that players like Myles Turner are going to be the ones most negatively affected by it if their team does not recognize their value.
I suppose I could have been on board with the CBA way they did it if they made it so sign and trades were like easy, but the hard cap restriction is tight on that too. So then it restricts their earning power elsewhere also. So that's like, okay, you have bird rights or you can go get nothing. Good luck. Like that's where I think they missed a little bit.
Yeah, and so for a guy like Turner, I think with the team, it used to be like a no-brainer where it's just like, no, he does all these things for us and he's so valuable. We'll absolutely do it. Except for that, we got to make room for the tax. We'll make room for the tax in other areas.
Right.
And now it's more a matter of like, you have this justification to just be like, well, and not only from your own perspective of, well, we can't do it for us, but you look around and because the other teams are in the same boat, it's like, well, we can let Turner go because the rest of the teams aren't loading up either. Nobody's loading up because of the second apron, except for the Celtics. When the Los Angeles Clippers look at Paul George and they're like, yeah, it's fine. You can go. Like that's to me is like the biggest indication of this. And so, I think it presents these challenges for what the owners have successfully done is they've put front offices in positions where they have to defend making unpopular moves that make their teams worse because of a system the owners devised in order to not have to spend more. It's a pretty genius setup that the owners got away with.
Yeah, they want, and I suppose the NBA could smile and say, "Hey, parity," but like the players that give you parity should probably be paid, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
The Jarris conversation is so short, so it's does he play, and is it because of merit or injuries? And if he does play, how good is he? Is he truly the guy that could be the piece they need at a forward spot? Because right now, I'm assuming you have the same rotation projection. He would not be in it, but there's way more ways he could play due to injury this year than last year. So if he does hit the court, how good is he? They have 2 lottery picks from the last 3 seasons. If one of them is lottery pick level good, it's going to be a good team for a while. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm a little bit surprised that Jarris is out. I haven't done a projection on the depth chart.
He's guy 11 on a team that has 10 guys. It is what it is.
I think the key there though is like, well, we'll see how Rick feels. Like that's always like where I get to with these projections is like, the idea of like no strategy survives the battlefield. No rotation survives a coach in training camp. And so,
True.
We'll see. Now, is it likely that Rick's going to go for the second year guy? Probably not. But
he started a rookie in the conference finals. The guy in front of Jarris is Ben Shepherd.
So, if Jarris comes in and busts backside and is able to earn a spot, like it wouldn't shock me to see him play. Very high on his potential, very high on his upside. We'll see kind of what they do. But yeah, I mean, look, it's a jammed rotation. But you're gonna have injuries, you're gonna have opportunities. I think you'll probably wind up having a pretty good season.
I think he'll get to something like 55 to 60 games this year. And for some inside baseball that nobody asked for, if you happened, Matt, to pick the exact same 3 players as me, and I had to audible down to 6, Ben Shepherd would have been the next player we talked about. So.
Again, another guy that I want.
We're not going to talk about Ben Shepherd. Yeah. We talked about too many guys.
Another guy that's like, if it was me, I would have been like, oh, Ben Shepherd's like number 2 on this list. He's still interesting, but instead, I guess we'll talk about Tyrese Haliburton.
Such is life. Matt Moore, people know who you are, but tell them where they can find you and the stuff you do, talking about the NBA and the Nuggets, and even talking on podcasts like this all the time.
If you're into betting, you can check out my podcast Buckets from the Action Network. You can check out the Action Network app. Lots of great stuff there, doing win totals, breakdowns of all these things, talks about futures and my case for Tyrese Haliburton for MVP this year, all sorts of stuff there. You can catch me on Locked On Nuggets if you want the Nuggets perspective, and I'm on Locked On NBA on Tuesdays with David Ramil, and when I'm very lucky, occasionally Tony East.
I am the Ben Mathurin super sub of Locked On NBA. So
you're a 6 fan.
I talk to everybody. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Tomorrow with person TBD, because I'm terrible at planning, we will be talking about if the Pacers are to win a title with this current core, what would it take? What would the steps be from some players or coaches or executives or whatever that get them there? Hope you all enjoyed today's show. We see you very soon.